and see whether Mr. Johnson changes his mind with that.
He has experienced this, so I think he stands in a position of experience.
Yeah. Let's move to Africa. Eben, if you can help us with that. What's the latest there?
In the African numbers, excuse me, give me some.
So while you're looking for the African numbers, we'll in a bit also look at the ban on social gatherings here in Ghana. Sunday will actually be the time the president is expected to review it following the last announcement he made. Remember, the first day that announcement was made was on the 15th of March, where the president announced that he had placed a ban on social gatherings.
The deaths, 2,074. Recovery stand at 18,633. And then they have a breakdown of the blocks, of the various blocks within Africa. But they've rounded up the figures. So North Africa still leads with 19,800 cases. Western, that is West Africa, where Ghana is, comes second with 15,200 cases. Southern Africa, nearly 9,000 cases. Eastern Africa, nearly 5,000 cases, and Central Africa also 4,900 cases thereabout. So, but then on the park, you still have South Africa having 8,232 cases. They have 161 deaths. Their recoveries 3,153, and they've conducted the test for 292,153 people, and this is for a population of almost 60 million. Algeria also has 5,182 cases, the deaths 483, recoveries 2,323, and the test conducted is 6,500. Morocco has 5,548 cases, the deaths 183, recoveries 2,179, and the test is 56,000. Egypt, 7,981 cases, the deaths 482, recoveries 1,887, and they've conducted over 90,000 tests. Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, actually has 3,526 with 107 deaths, 601 recoveries, and they've done tests for just 22,492 people, and there's a population of almost 206 million people. So those are some of the few figures from Africa, but some also headlines making rounds within Africa. Experts fear COVID-19 could set back tuberculosis fight. Now, the fight against tuberculosis could be set back by more than 5 years due to the coronavirus pandemic, risking an additional 1.4 million TB deaths and 6.3 million infections by 2025. This was a report from Stop TB Partnership, which is a Geneva-based international organization. Now, the concern is that the study says coronavirus lockdowns affecting poor people who cannot practice social distancing in their homes mean higher risk of TB transmission, while restricted movement disrupt treatment. And also in Kenya, the government says it's going to foot the bills for quarantine.
Oh, it's changed its mind now.
Yeah, so government on Thursday confirmed that it will foot bills of suspected persons quarantined for COVID-19. The move is to encourage more people to avail themselves for testing as the country's cases continue to rise day by day. And also, DRC-Zambia border reopens. The DRC on Thursday announced a partial reopening for pedestrians, a border post with Zambia. This followed a day's demonstration against this preventive measure taken in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And also Nigeria is repatriating more of its citizens from, especially within the UAE and other places. And as you are aware, Ghana, yesterday there was a statement we cited where the Ghana mission in Jordan and within the Saudi area also asked Ghanaians who live there, who want to come home back, to probably give their register, and then probably they could be flown home.
There was a video that was all over the place, I think from yesterday. I think it came from Qatar, where Africans were actually being told to leave over this COVID thing, like just similar to the China case. If we can, we'll pull that video in a bit. But let's still stay with Africa, because I want us to look at the latest coming from WHO, which is warning that as many as 190,000 of Africans are likely to die from this pandemic this year alone. And it's also predicting that between 29 and 44 million Africans may get infected from this virus. Let me start with you, Selom, first of all, on your thoughts about this very worrying statistics given by the WHO.
Well, interesting reports and interesting the figures they've thrown out. This is not the first time WHO Africa region has put out a report like this. I look at this in two ways. One, it sounds alarming or alarmist. Number two, the report in the way it has been put, even though we may not believe it, should put us on the alert to ensure that even as a lot of countries are working to ease their restrictions, they do not get complacent.
Yeah.
So I think that WHO, in the past few weeks, has been very alarmist when it comes to matters of Africa. I'm tempted to believe that sometimes the West is waiting to see the West happen in Africa. They started by saying that we will see in the next few weeks or months after the infection had reached Africa, we will see dead bodies on our streets, etc. Ghana alone Ghana is about 6 or 7 weeks into it. Some other countries have spent more weeks in this, Egypt and co. And we've not seen dead bodies on the streets. We kind of saw a few of that in Europe.
I think Africa is actually managing pretty well.
I think so, but I say so cautiously because the disease has an interesting life cycle. We are not complacent in Africa. I think the African governments are doing some of the best things that many governments across the world are doing. As maybe due to the fact that we've sat back and we've seen how devastating the virus could be in other areas. We've learned quickly from interventions that were put in place by other countries across the globe. We've seen what has worked, we've seen what hasn't worked. Like the issue about masks, for example. We have learned from the experience of the Czech Republic and other countries that have used the mask. Before that, those countries in Europe did not really have any experience to learn from. We have had the benefit of that. So I think Africa, even though we generally have a weaker health system, when you compare, when you have to compare ours to what we have in Asia and Europe, I think generally, because of the factors aforementioned, we have done a bit better, and I say so again cautiously, in managing this. WHO's thing, I see it as alarmist and too screaming, but the positive side I want to take from it is that it puts us on our toes and tells us not to be complacent. Even Africa should look within itself for the solution for COVID-19. If we look up to the West will have to deal with themselves first before they look at Africa, because if your house is burning, you have to ensure you put out the fire before you move to help your neighbors. That is what is going to happen. And I'm happy about some of the interventions that African leaders or African countries have started putting across. Aside from the general things we know, the lockdowns, the restrictions, the protocols, etc., there are some discussions about traditional treatments and solutions. We are seeing what is happening in Madagascar. A lot has been said about their case. I hear some of those will be coming to our sub-region in Ghana.
Even in Ghana, we are considering some about...
It is good. We have to look at it and then see what can be done from that. Even in Ghana, I heard today that the Amen scientific people say they have done something that is similar and trying to... That is helping people. They've sent it to other people in other parts of the world. They've taken it and they've been fine. We have to look within for the solution to this. And others have also said many things, but maybe I'll come back and we'll look at those. Okay,
Even your initial reaction to this, you will be worried about the figures that we are getting. 29 to 44 million people likely to be infected, 190,000 people likely to die from COVID-19 here in Africa.
I mean, my initial reaction to those stories, I also feel they're a bit alarmist. I mean, some of the predictions. I mean, I think even the first scary prediction that came was the one that said that people will die on the streets and will find dead bodies. And this...
That was actually from Miranda Gates.
This actually... And there's also... there's a virologist in Germany, Christian Drosten. He's a worldwide authority on infectious diseases. And he's one of the people who said this. And he said that the peak of infections will also occur in African countries this summer. I do not like to imagine which pictures you will see. We will see people die from it on the streets in Africa. The situation will be bad, very bad. I mean, like Selom said, you can't also rubbish it completely, because I think that any country that has attempted to be complacent pays the price for it in this situation. It's happening in Brazil. So you want to be cautious and take these things as they are just strengthening you to do more than you are doing. There's that part. But also I think that sometimes there's also the part that puts unnecessary fear in people, you know, because it's Africa. Of course, we know that infrastructure-wise, health-wise, we have issues and we don't have the best of systems. But of course, even the best of systems have been shaken by this situation. And that is the proof of what we call crisis. Crisis are things normally that happens beyond your control. You don't know how they come and they can just hit anybody. So I think that some of these predictions, it's a bit of a mixed reaction for me. We just need to be cautious. I mean, the whole of Africa, it's been 5 months or 6 months of this disease, and the whole of Africa, a population of 1.3 billion, has just about a little over 2,000 deaths. And we are predicting that in the next 1 year, 190,000 people are going to die. I don't know how these calculations, they come by these calculations. It's a bit weird for me too, you know. But we just still have to do what we have to do. I think that the continent is doing its best, but also sometimes I think that some of these predictions, in a way, try to look down upon us in terms of what we can do. And I think sometimes they're a bit unfair on us. They're a bit quite harsh, you know. But hey, we'll still take the caution and do what we have to do. I believe that the continent is doing it best. We are only hoping that probably before a virus is found, the disease will somehow burn out like the SARS-CoV-1 in 2003. There was never a virus for it. It burnt out itself. And there was never a vaccine for it. It just burnt out. And so we are hoping that probably this will either burn out, or by the time we find some very solid treatment for those. And also, personally, I have not, I think from the readings of virus outbreaks or such pandemics, I think that generally Africa has not been hit so much by a lot of these pandemics. I don't know whether there's any scientific reason for that. I mean, we have heard the arguments about the weather condition in Africa and the humidity and how sometimes probably it could play to our advantage somehow in terms of these situations. Because for instance, the SARS-CoV-1, when it also started from China too, it didn't really get to Africa. I mean, there are some of them that I don't know about the 1918 Spanish pandemic. I don't know how much of a devastation it caused to Africa. But I think that for my young life, the virus, the disease that may have caused a bit of devastation to the continent was the Ebola situation. But even that, the countries that were affected in Africa were not more than 20. In fact, they are not even up to 20. And if you look at the death toll, there were just about 28,000 cases, about 12,000 deaths. And so I think that somehow, maybe nature somehow plays for us to advantage. I don't know. But that's just my thinking. So I don't think that we'll get to that levels of fatality in Africa. I don't believe that.
Well, they say they put into account our slow pattern of transmissions and also our younger population, which is something we've said that it appears that is helping us. Marcelo, you think differently?
Yes, it's a good way to think. But now they are saying that they don't think that the disease will have just one wave in Africa. And now they are saying that the disease may stay in Africa for many years to come. So in the first year, 190,000 people across the continent will die. As we speak, less than 2,000 people have died in Africa. Less than 2,000 people have died in Africa. They are saying that in the first year, about 190,000 people will die. All these projections can happen. What is important is that we are on the ground and we have so much confidence and trust in what governments across Africa are doing, despite the fact that we have weak health systems. It will be fine. The other things you cannot take from Africa. Africa is a continent of faith. And I always say this, you can't take out the element of faith in recovery from ailments. Faith is an important thing. When people are sometimes about to die, of course, people have said that the reason why a lot of people die is because they lose hope. If you lose hope, it accelerates your rate to death. If you have hope, in fact, there have been tests done, you know, with mice, etc., left in very bad conditions in the dark. After a while, they died. Another test was conducted with the same conditions, but they left a small hole somewhere with light coming from the top, showing that there is hope. Those mice, or the mice in that circumstance, lived a bit longer. So there's a thing to be said for hope, and in this case, belief or faith. Africa is a continent of faith. We believe that things happen to us for certain reasons, and we also believe that God is able to heal us and do something. So though we may not have the answers as human beings. We have the belief that God somewhere, somehow will help us. And that faith and hope or belief makes us want to forge ahead and then live. When you look at the average person in the West, they get depressed easily over very trivial and small things. Your salary hasn't come for 1 month, and you are so depressed that things get so bad. We have, I think, the faith element we cannot do away with. So yes, all these projections will happen. We understand that more elderly people have maybe generally weaker immune system, and because there's no cure for this or treatment for this yet, the immune system is what we depend on, etc. And it's true, averagely or generally, younger people. And so this plays to advantage that we have a younger population than Europe and than Asia. So this is playing to advantage. So I don't think that these projections will come to pass, but they should make us know that we don't have to be complacent. This is a time for Africa to show to the whole world that we are capable of weathering this storm and not getting to the deplorable or bad levels that people in Asia or Europe reached.
Okay. So we'll see how that pans out as the months go, and then of course the year and all that. But let's move to another issue to do with the lifting on the ban on social gatherings. Now on Sunday, the date given for a review comes up. So we're looking to see whether there'll be a review or not, or what the president will say on that. Remember, that's one of the few restrictions left after the pandemic hit us that were announced. So we'll be bringing you up to date on that. But I want to take you to the Jubilee House because some days back, the Christian Council met with, together with other religious bodies, met with the president seeking to get him to lift the ban on the social gatherings, and of course that to do with the churches and all that. So let's go quickly to the Jubilee House and see what they said on that, and then we'll look at the implications if we do or if we should not.
President Akufo-Addo on March 15th this year announced a ban on all public gatherings, including funerals, except for private burials, conferences, seminars, teaching and learning, and religious activities, among others, nationwide. This was one of the measures taken by government to curb the spread of the coronavirus. On April 12, 2020, the president extended the ban by 2 more weeks after Ghana recorded more cases. At a meeting with the Council of State at the Jubilee House, President Akufo-Addo says he will listen to wise counsel before taking any decision.
There are still very important measures in place that are impacting the daily lives of our people. How long can we keep the churches closed? How long can we keep the mosques closed? What about our schools? When are they going to be able to resume? What are the circumstances and conditions that we have to see being satisfied before those measures can be taken? But there are very critical steps that we all have to think about. Because the present situation, the emergency, cannot be a permanent feature of our national life. We have at some stage to confront the future and how we will address that future.
Meanwhile, the Christian Council of Ghana says it supports all measures taken by government so far to curb the spread of the virus. Chairman of the council, Reverend Paul Boafo, who led a team of Christian leaders to meet the president, says they will do everything possible to help government win the fight against the disease.
Today, as we meet to look at the way forward, myself and my colleagues, we are saying that we would continue first to play our role as the places of hope for our people. When it comes to the church, we stand in, and in our live streaming and the way we have reached our people, we have brought hope to them. We've brought a sense of healing, and in that they have also looked up to God, the one who can see us through this pandemic.
So that's the president, also the chairman of the Christian Council, speaking over there on whether or not we should lift the ban on gatherings and all that. But we've seen a bit of the restrictions being eased. The lockdown, we've been allowed to now go out and all that. We've reached our peak, we are told, in terms of the infections and all that. If you've reached your peak, you've lifted your lockdown and all that. Is it time to now consider the ban on the social gatherings, or is it too early to deal with that? Initial comments. Then we'll look at what various groupings under that are the concerns they're raising.
I think there's really no straight answer for this. This is not that simple. I mean, I said that after the lifting of the partial lockdown, our best bet that was left was social distancing. Mm-hmm. So after you lifted the lockdown, the best bet was to ensure social distancing. And that's why we have seen most major markets not function as they should. We have seen public transport reducing the numbers. Yeah. Some ensuring that when you don't have mask, you don't join. So our best bet is social distancing after we lifted the lockdown. Now here we are. That obviously is also causing its own impact. Mm-hmm. So what do we do? Situations, and they are doing things gradually, easing things up here and there. In many of the places, many of the countries, China, Australia, South Africa, they are easing stuff, but they've not done everything at a go. Mm-hmm. So we might still have to do things bit by bit. I don't know how the president will do it, but I believe that he and the team, it's not just about churches, it's not just about mosque. There are places you cannot go to. This week I wanted to meet somebody at a restaurant, and I wish that I could have gone to sit there so that we eat and talk, but I cannot. So we have postponed that conversation. So there's and it's affecting business, because once people are not going to the restaurants, they are doing deliveries, they are spending less. Yeah. Because once you are paying cost for delivery, you are buying food. If you go and sit at the restaurant, you're actually likely to even spend more, because you buy a lot more and they make more money. Hotels are still struggling, conferences are not taking place. The impact is still huge. So what do we do? I think we want to leave that to the president. If they are really going to work on data and the science that we've been told inform the earlier decision to lift the partial lockdown, then we would think that they will take some good decision that favors everybody. But it's really a tough call, because I don't know how, when this is lifted, you are going to ensure social distancing in the church or in the mosque or in any other place where public gathering is supposed to happen. I think this is actually a very tough call. I don't know what is going to happen. Our case, we are still over 3,000 now. We don't know what will happen in the next few days. We don't even know. So it's really a difficult situation. Okay. I don't want to be in the president.
Before Salom comes in, I'll run you guys through a document we have, which came actually from the Christian bodies over, why they feel that the ban on social gathering with regards to the church can't be lifted, and what they intend to do to ensure that they don't flout certain rules. But first of all, they put out the areas that they feel are risk areas in the church. So, for example, they believe the entry points to the churches, the doors, door handles, rails, pillars, utility areas in the church, the WCs, the sitting arrangements in the church, group sitting, nature of the church building. They also looked at poor ventilated churches, and then the nature of services they run, handshakes during welcome sessions, even during the breaks where you greet each other. They looked at the singing groups congregating at one side and singing. Now we know that singing and spitting can easily spread the disease, so they looked at that. They also looked at group meetings, and then Sunday school, where teachers are quite close to the kids in the small groupings and all that, and then older people. They also looked at communion service, where cups are handed to individuals, and then where in some churches, I believe the Catholic churches and some others, they drink from the same cup. They also looked at the devices used, the microphones and all that, the telephones. And then they looked at the money, the handling of money, which there was a report from some financial institutions saying that could also spread the virus. And then, of course, they looked at the pastor proper, their offices, the door, and then the room and all that. And all of these things, they came up with things they feel that could be used. So, for example, the church entrances and the lobby area, they want to make available hand washing materials, like we're seeing across the Veronica buckets and all that. And then with the sanitation, they're looking at the hand sanitizers, preferably a dispenser. It should be available at the church entrance, outside washrooms, the pastor's office, among others. And then they'll also push for the enforcement of hand washing and sanitization of the area. So you have, in some cases, you'll have one person, which is sort of an usher, dedicated to the entrance of the churches to enforce that. And then, of course, the utility areas, they'll make sure they are cleaned and all that. And then seating in the churches, they want to go with observation of social distancing through sitting arrangements. So they will rearrange their sitting to arm's length reach per the rules, and then to ensure that if there's a cough, sneeze, and talking from one church member to the other, you don't pick anything. And then they'll provide separate sitting areas for aged and families. So you see people who are old and with kids at a particular place. And then in sessions, so that is to push the the numbers, to reduce the numbers. So sort of the shift system will play there. And of course they'll be wearing the face masks. Everybody in the church will be expected to wear the face masks. Now those whose ventilation are not good, all windows should be opened fully during church service to allow good ventilation. And then there should not be the use of air conditioners. There have been reports that air conditioners help in the spread. So they are now saying that all the churches must open their windows, if this is approved, and they shouldn't use the air conditioners. And then, of course, the nature of the service, they are saying that there shouldn't be any handshaking during the period of the COVID-19. And all those who speak in churches, whether pastors and all those, should wear the N95 masks. They're specific with that, the N95 masks. Now, the choristers, the singers, all that, they are supposed to observe social distancing and also avoid a second row of singers as much as possible. So if there are 30 choristers, we are this is approved. And then the communion service, they are supposed to offer individual cups for communion, reduce hand-to-hand transmission by providing individual bread and cup servings, and hand hygiene and food safety precautions must strictly be observed by those who prepare those communions. And then the giving and then collection of offering and tithe, it is advisable that they do not pass offering bowls and baskets around. So what we are likely to see is, they say, a stationary bowl with a wide opening to be put in front of the entry point where people do not need to handle the bowl, putting in their offering and tithes. Now, where practicable, churches are advised to use the mobile money for the offerings and the tithes, which I think is not going so well. I keep saying that since this thing started, I haven't given my tithe, which is so bad.
Your pastor is listening. My
pastor is listening. I'm sure he'll be very disappointed, but I won't be surprised because I haven't gotten around to sending my mobile money. And then, of course, they intend to be hard with the education bit. So these are some of what they've presented to the president, that if they allow them to worship, this is how they'll go about it. I think it looks good.
Interesting. You see, we don't have to underestimate the power of the church and what church gatherings do to people. The therapeutic relief it even provides, meeting people, the spiritual leaders, listening to them, getting encouragement from the church and from one another. Very, very key. And earlier I made a point about faith helping Africa, in my view, in this very bad times. And you know, Bible says that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Where we normally or usually hear the word of God is in church, usually because it's not the holy place, but it's a place where we meet. And Bible says, you know, you shouldn't forsake the assembly of the brethren. There is a reason why the fellowship is there. It helps to do many other things.
Yeah.
Back to this. So I saw the document as you just read, and I put a lot of the measures they are mentioning into three broad categories. One is structural, number two, logistics, number three, education and enforcement. And I think they've dealt with all of these quite well. So in terms of the structural component of it, we look at the nature of the building. Some buildings are not well ventilated because they use air conditioners. The seating arrangement, that's also structural. The arrangement, even communion service, how it's held, that is structural. And how they pass or how they do their offertory. Some churches sit, bowl is sent round, others get up, dance, and go and put the money in the bowl at designated places. All these are structural things that they are hoping to change. But the bowl being in front of or at a designated place we're going to put money in appears like what they are going to be doing. Logistics. Now they are saying that they will put sanitizers or sanitizer dispensers at vantage points in the church, the entrance especially. So they'll ensure that there is hand washing. So there'll be Veronica buckets where we don't have a lot of taps for people to wash their hands. There'll be the wearing of masks, a logistical issue. When somebody is coming to church and the person has the mask, what do? Very delicate. Do you turn the person away from coming to church?
Well, or you
provide the person with a mask? If you don't have enough masks around, what do? Do you turn him away? Document that they will place ushers at vantage points to be ensuring that people adhere to these enforcement. Ushers will be placed there to ensure that they do that, and that will go hand in hand with education. The church is a very huge body. About 71% of Ghanaians identify with Christianity or with churches. So imagine this number of people going to church on Sunday and having pastors all over telling them about the importance of the protocol, social distancing, hand washing, sanitizing, stay home when you have nothing to do in town. I think it will add quite a bit to very, very important. So that's how I look at it. But the other point is, are we ready for are we ready to ease or to ease the restrictions on public gatherings? It is a question that should be answered using the data. And a lot has been said about data in the past few weeks and days. I don't have the data because the decision makers, I'm sure, have better data than we all have. Because we just realized a few days ago that they've actually disaggregated the daily infection rates into dates, which is useful. Based on that, they told us that we have gone past our peak. I don't have that data. It's an issue that you require a lot of data to do. I don't know what our R0 is. I don't know how many people can be infected if an infected person by an infected person today in Ghana. We don't know that. Maybe they know. I don't know. Also, how well is our tracking going? Recently, is it? I mean, when the new results came, 372 new cases were reported as part of the new results, which took our number to 3,091. Does it mean that we are now going to look for those people, bearing in mind that the samples were taken days and weeks ago? Does it mean that we are now going to look for those people and then do contact tracing? If it was taken, the sample was taken a week or two ago, or even a few days ago, you are now going to ask them which places they have been and what kinds of people they have met, etc. Before you start contact tracing. Meanwhile, these people would have gone around infecting a lot of people, and so that is where the speed of our testing and checking our results hasn't been very useful. When you look at all these and you look at that against the criteria given by the WHO, the guideline given by the WHO to guide countries in easing their lockdowns, I would think that even though the churches have come up with this noble thing, I mean, social distancing in church, running multiple services, so if you would now have to preach the same message 3 or 4 times when before he was just doing it once. You know, they look good, but I am quite uneasy about it because we have not proven to be people of discipline. So you can't just appeal to the conscience of a Ghanaian not to do something. When there was even strict lockdown or partial lockdown, we saw what people did. People were going to the beach, people were throwing parties, people were doing things that they shouldn't even be doing around those times. So can we trust ourselves that?
Yeah, maybe the you know, with the church system,
so the churches will ensure,
pastor,
okay, so
can ensure.
So this easing of restriction, will it just be for the churches and the mosques, or it will be across the board? So if it is going to be lifted and it's going to be across the board, what happens to the schools? Where we have 50, 60, 70 students in one class. How is that going to be? Are we going to run 3 or 4 tracks in a day, or how is that going to run? These are structural and even logistical challenges that we have had, and this is exposing. But I'm not sure we've wrapped our minds around it properly as we speak. Creche, I mean kids. If you have a kid, 2, 3, 4-year-old, would you allow him to go to school? You know, when everybody else is coming from their home, you don't know where they are coming from. They are all coming to congregate at one place. You know,
and would you tell that child, don't play with your friend?
You can't because kids play among them, so they like to touch things. A lot of them pick things straight to their mouth. You can't tell a kid not to touch the face. It will be an exercise in futility. If you wear them the mask, they will remove it because it's even for us adults, it is not comfortable. It's not conveniencing. So I
so
would
you
think,
feel we're not ready to lift that.
What the churches have done, very, very great. But I think that structurally and logistically, we will still have some grounds to cover. If it were just churches and mosques, because they are religious institutions, there's a way that their leaders are able to tell them to do things, and they do. But will you just lift the ban on churches and mosques and leave all the others? That is what you must think about. And I don't think that would be proper to do. When you lift the ban, then you lift the ban on everything, funerals, etc.
But if you're not sure about the others, so the way they will go about
I'm just not sure.
I'm saying that if it's because I'm sure this document that they presented, of course, is subject to discussions from cabinet and all those, the COVID response team, etc. But if it's good enough, or they prove that they can apply what they've said they can do, is it out of place for the president to take out the churches and the religious bodies in terms of the lifting, and then look at the others?
That would be very interesting. My suggestion, however, is we have something for private funerals, you know, maximum 25 people. Can we say that depending on the size of your church, maybe we can say you don't have a service of more than 100 people? But how are you going to enforce that? Because some churches are very small. So if you say no less than 100 people, in fact, the whole membership of the church is 50, and they are packed in a certain room. So if you say no less than 100 people, I mean, they cannot come to church and they'll be packed that way. And that is a place for infection to occur. Remember what we call the patient 31 in South Korea, who went to church, infected people, and then resulted or caused a spike in the South Korean numbers. Indeed, South Korea attributes a lot of its cases to that particular patient 31 who went to church, infected everybody, went to a hospital for a party, infected a lot of people there. I mean, if I didn't infect everybody in the church, a few people in the church, and because of how the services were held, they were closely knit, always attending service, Bible teaching services, etc. It's spiked quickly. So we need to look at it. It's not a very easy decision. But the data and the science, as we always say, should guide us. I don't have all the data that we require to take this decision, but it will certainly be a tough call. But I expect at least one more extension of this particular ban on public gatherings.
Oh, okay.
I think I'll take it from the point Salom ended. I also actually think that we need probably one more extension on the ban on public gathering. I think so, so that we are sure and we tell ourselves to find out what will happen in the next 2 weeks. In the next 2 weeks, if we let's say extend for the next 2 weeks, are we going to see new infections? What's going to be the rate of infection and all that? Then probably after that, we could begin to take some decisions on the easing. I mean, the ideas from the church leaders are fantastic, but you see, our biggest problem has always been implementation. I mean, we put it here, it's so nice on paper, it sounds so good to the ears, but implementation is the problem. You know, so I think that the churches may have to sacrifice a bit more. Let's just sacrifice for a few more days. I think we should sacrifice for a few more days and then see how we fix this. Of course, it's fellowship, but hey, the situation at hand is a bit tricky, and it's not so clear. Anything could happen at any time. So I think that they may have to take a bit of a break. We should be careful not to also just please one side of
Because if
the
we
category
go
of
by
Ghanaians
what the
who want
WHO is saying about the prolonged, thing the disease will take. If we are going by such,
of course.
It should make us
research.
cautious.
Yeah.
So for example, I expect that we have, let's say, some random tests. So look at the areas we did the enhanced test contact tracing. These were high risk areas for whatever reason. Let's go back to those communities. Let's just do random, tests. Let's take samples randomly and bring them back and come and check. Hopefully the labs now are many so they can work faster. Let's get to the market. Let's take some random samples. Let's come and test them. I think it will help us in some other area have a sense of how the situation looks like. Let's go back to maybe the families or the people who were infected before. Let's see if we can do some random testing in those areas to, but lifting the ban this Sunday, I think it's a tough call.
So these are a few messages. This one says, I don't think that government should open or lift the ban on religious activities, especially churches, because it's not all churches that will do what is in the document. I think the government should think about opening schools, not churches. This one says, lifting church gatherings is dangerous unless Christian Council tells us that it's divine directive. They shouldn't think they can control the crowd because the compliance level is very, very low. This is from Faustina Cranston from Takwa. So a few people feel that compliance, like you guys have said, will not work for us. But for how long can we put on hold that form of activity, not just for churches but all others?
Listen, I miss church. I tell you, I really miss church. I miss everything that happens in church and everything. But look at the nature of our worship. We shake hands. There's this thing after worship. You sing a song to welcome people in church. How is that going to be? It's going to be different. It's going to be a bit different now. The way we dance, the way we do things. It's going to be really different. I think that given the figures we have seen and how the figures have come in, let's give ourselves a few more days to study the trend again and see how that can happen. The churches, must they have these thermometer guns or temperature guns, however they call them? How must they be? We need to nuance the discussion a bit more. But lifting it this weekend, it will be a tough call. But indeed, it's a call for the president. He has more information than everybody else. If in his estimation, we've given him power to make decisions on our behalf. Though those decisions, it doesn't mean that we cannot interrogate those decisions. We've given the power to make decisions on our behalf. And I think he means well. He wants the country to get back to normal and activity, as soon as possible. If he sees the documents, the figures or the data, and he thinks that we are in a better place to do so, why not? But I shudder to say that we need a few more days to study the trend better.
What about the schools? I think it applies the same way. I think even with the school, the situation is not as complex as the churches, because like the way you can do virtual learning, it's a bit, it's much better than with the church, because you can actually even give people exams through their mails and some systems so that they work on assignments and all that. With the schools, it's a bit, but even I think schools are actually on vacation. Per the calculation, they should be on vacation.
And they are doing the online thing.
And some are doing the online stuff. So I think that probably we all, it's like we said, we are not in normal times, and everybody will have to do some serious adjustment for us to see how things go. I mean, I know the churches, aside the urge for fellowship, there's also a concern about money. And that's the point. In my church alone, on one Sunday, when you add the tithes and offerings together, sometimes it's 20,000. That's money, and all that is gone for the last almost six weeks. 6 weeks, and people are not paying. And the churches, some have hospitals they support, some have schools they support. And all that. Aside the pastors, you need to pay and all that. During the lockdown, for instance, a friend of mine who attends one of the churches, I won't mention the name. The church platform, they put it there that they should send their tithe through mobile money. And the lady was angry because within the lockdown, she herself was stranded. She didn't even have money to survive. You're asking her to come and pay. So there are two ways to the situation. But we may have to just sacrifice a bit. I think at this point, let's not gamble too much at this point. I mean, you can't, the point also is that this situation we have is a bit, people have to take a risk. Because if you don't know what happened next, but you need to take certain risk and see how things will go. Well, if you take the risk and it doesn't work well, you guide others by that. Others are guided by that to be careful in how they take their decisions. If you take and it goes well, you become a lead for others and they learn. Whichever way, some risk have to be taken at certain point. But I think that with the ban on public gathering, I think we need to extend it a bit more.
The online for the schools, the online studies or learning or teaching, it looks great, but it can be tough. If you have kids and you have to supervise them to do online learning, I tell you, it's tough. I watched a video a few days ago. I don't know where the school is. People using the IT teacher was teaching them how to click a mouse and how to drag an object from somewhere to somewhere, and they were using stones. So if you find yourself in a community or an area like that where you don't even have mouse to look at and to study, you are using stones to show how to click a mouse and drag objects from one place to the other. They are totally cut out from this online thing. So it cuts out, maybe we're in Accra, so we see a lot of people engaged in it. But the vast majority of the country may be cut out from this thing. And how many of the students really take this online thing seriously? Some of them think they are just marking time or just rehearsing for school itself, not knowing that is the real deal. So, I think the academic calendar will be greatly in a mess by now. I don't know what becomes of double track, green track, gold track. I don't know how they're going to reorganize themselves. I don't know what WAEC is going to do, whether they are going to take off a whole year. I don't know how they're going to change the calendar entirely, and if exams were to be written in July or August, now exams will be written in December. I don't know how it's going to be, but I think just when the authorities, that be WAEC and co, have a good sense of how the pandemic is the trajectory of the pandemic and how it is easing or otherwise, I'm sure they will come out with some guidelines to help everybody. But even to help your friend who was angry about the church offering. Offering is great. Offering is great. Offering is, if you give, it's blessing. People must know that. And you don't have to be forced to give. If you understand giving, you will rush to give. And like Eben rightly said, some of the churches are supporting institutions, hospitals, schools, etc., paying salaries of staff from those hospitals and schools, and even paying salaries of full-time workers in churches. It's quite a bit of a burden. If you look at a church as a business, not as a business necessarily to make profit, but as a business of managing things, you will understand why they also need money to run, and that's why this particular lockdown is having quite some toll on them. But it is the same as other companies. But let's
the Muslim. He says it will be difficult to ensure social distancing in the mosques because it is sooner to close gaps in the rooms. We stand shoulder to shoulder, so it will be very difficult. I think Sunnah is one of the traditions. It's spelled S-U-N-N-A, so not Sunnah as in S-O-N-N-E-R. Okay, guys, thank you so much. We have to end here. Our time is up. Ebenezer Fenyidati, he heads business desk here at Citi FM and Citi TV, and also Selom Adonu, he also heads articles and features department here at Citi FM and Citi TV. My name is Vivian Kai Loko. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.